No, make no mistake. It's not revenge he's after. It's a reckoning.
Did Edison sleep before he turned on the light? Did Marconi sleep before he turned on the radio? Did Beethoven sleep before he wrote the Fifth?
I know the truth. There's no going back. You've changed things.
I have successfully privatized world peace.
The Romans would suspend democracy and appoint one man to protect the city. It wasn't considered an honor, it was considered a public service.
Harvey, the last man that they appointed to protect the Republic was named Caesar, and he never gave up his power.
Okay.
I'm older now than he ever was, about 20 years. So.
This may be the only thing I do that matters.
No sacrifice, no victory!
Heavenly God, creator of heaven and earth, have mercy on my soul.
If I may have your attention, I'd like to welcome you to the inaugural installment of Modern Saviors, where we study superhero mythology and contemporary legends. In this critical and discursive introduction, the Modern Saviors Prolegomenon will set the tone for what to expect in our adventure through the modern myths together. In time, we will come to learn our own power. In the past 6 or 7 years, comic book culture has severely downgraded in the aspects of heroism and quality. This has created a surrounding culture that lacks any answers to our questions or any quality of its own. There are many talented creators within the comic book space. However, as a whole, they seem to lack variety. The content that has been created in the comic book space has typically been one of two things. Either a regurgitation of the material from whatever comic or movie they happen to be making a video about, or the boastful declaration of opinions as fact. I understand that I am new to the scene. However, I believe I am the most qualified explorer to uncover this new ground. There is this rich vein of comic book culture that remains untapped, regardless of how many talented creators are out there in this space. Modern Saviors aims to take an academic approach towards comic book culture, so that we may uncover the influences of mythology, history, politics, and religion on our superheroes and the rest of our modern myths. We will come to learn how the heroes of humanity's past have come to influence our heroes of today. We will study how historical figures have great inspiration over our modern marauders and malefactors. We will make connections between geopolitical relations and how national defense has shaped our modern myths. And most importantly, we will understand how God has influenced our modern saviors. My name is Tristan Fields, and I believe I can help us better understand the relevance of myth in the modern world. Some people may think I'm a real joker, but I'm not here to tell you what I know. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here to take you on this journey with me, and I'm here to show you what my research has found. First and foremost, what exactly is meant by mythology? I'm going to give you 3 definitions. The first definition simply comes from a quick Google search. Google defines myth as a traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of a people, or explaining some natural or social phenomenon, and typically involving supernatural beings or events. Google also lists a second definition. However, it is not applicable here to our adventure at Modern Saviors, so we will not cover it. Google is describing myth as a description of the human experience with a supernatural explanation. The second definition comes from Joseph Campbell in his novelized interview, The Power of Myth. He offers a more of an eloquent description of myth rather than a concrete definition. He describes myth as the masks of God. From my own deductions, I believe he means to say that every culture creates this mask for God to wear, so that their God may reflect their collective experience and their collective identity. Later on in The Power of Myth, Campbell goes on to state that whether I'm reading Polynesian, Iroquois, or Egyptian myths, the images are the same. They are talking about the problems. They are talking about the same problems. It's as though the same play were taken from one place to another, and the local actors put on the local costumes and enacted the same old play. What he means is that each culture has their own hero that follows a similar path of the corresponding hero in older cultures. Each culture has a hero that occupies the same place within their pantheon. Today, it is our superheroes that fill those mythological roles that old cultures held in such reverence. It is the mission of modern saviors to find out how and why. Finally, I will give you my own definition. Mythology is a collection of symbolic representations of the human experience. It is the answers we create to the greatest questions within our psyche. The heroes within our stories are the personification of our varying collective identities. Modern saviors will explore how our modern heroes fill the roles of heroes past, how our stories are reenactments of stories past, and what is to be learned from them. In 2 recent interviews, Joe Rogan hosts conversations with Cat Williams and Zack Snyder. Both interviews provide relevant insight to the mission here at Modern Saviors. First off, Cat Williams, when discussing the tales of humanity's past, which determine what is good and what is evil, he describes that at the furthest extremes of those qualities, you find similar beings which embodies them. He specifically states,
whatever religion you're a part of, at some point it says
you were contacted,
that there was a fight in heaven, and this happened and that happened.
Yep, every single one of them.
Everyone, nobody's telling a different story. Everybody's telling the same stories.
The declaration that nobody is telling a different story supports Campbell's philosophy that cultures tell the same stories and describe the same phenomenons, just with their own heroes donning the cape.
Yeah.
Whatever religion you're a part of, at some point it says
You were contacted.
that there was a fight in heaven, and, this happened and that happened.
Yep.
Cat Williams, earlier in the interview, explains more support for Campbell's ideals when he states that everyone shares the same collectively agreed story for what goes on at America's infamous Area 51. He then applies that same concept to mythology when he states that everyone is describing the same couple of beings. He specifically states that
Telling a differing story as to what it is.
Right.
Like, people have great imaginations all through history. They could make up something. The only damning information is if you read 3,000 accounts of these entities and realize, wait a minute, why is everybody describing the same couple of beings?
this reigns true throughout all mythology. As different cultures wither away to history, the heroes of the newer cultures will rise to fill their role within the same structural pantheon.
Who dares? Of course, like the shadow of ebon-winged night, he rises from the dark realm. Behold, the coming of my brother, Lord Hades!
My declarations here tonight beg a couple of questions. Why does this phenomenon matter? What is the purpose of myth? In the other recent Joe Rogan interview, Zack Snyder provides an answer to these questions when he says,
we make myth, modern myth. Movies are modern myth. Superhero movies are modern myth. Like, is it not the same when you say, like, we have Superman, right, and Batman or whatever. Are they not the mythic answer to the a lot of modern questions about, like, how we should live? You know, like, you say Superman, is he not an invention, a 20th century invention that says to us, like, all the that we run up against, whether it be war or like class struggle or whether it be, relationships between different countries, does Superman not appear in answer to us primitive brains trying to figure out where we are? Like, you make a guy like Superman so he can answer some of those questions. He can represent a point of view that is not helpless in the face of the insanity that is, like, the problems of the 20th century. And I think, and Batman in the same way, he's an answer to, like, the urban jungle needs a myth, just like the ancient jungle needed a myth, or the ancient, those all, like, in those days we'd say, like, why is the volcano erupting, right? But now we say, because we didn't know, we're just like, I guess it's the gods are mad,
Right.
But now we have, now the problem is, like, why do I feel helpless in the face of technology or whatever?
Right.
So we need an answer. We need an additional answer.
He describes superhero movies as modern myth because the heroes provide us with an answer to how to overcome the challenges of the present day. He describes Superman as the answer to any problem humanity may face, from self-identity to war. He describes the Batman as the urban jungle myth, because as new landscapes are created, so are new problems. The Batman filled that role and provided answers to those newfound problems. Considering all of our sources, we can conclude with the establishment of the premise that modern saviors will analyze our local characters, wearing the local costumes, and the answers they provide to modern day issues. We will determine what role they play within the grander lexicon of human mythology. We will uncover the collective identity that they represent. In order for our modern myths to be effective, we have to uphold them. Christmas doesn't feel like Christmas unless you create the conditions of Christmas. The rest of our myths are the same. I hope you will join us on our adventure through the modern hero's journey. Thank you and good night.